wear no clothes. I'm a pedo, and I think that shows. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playground, watching kids playing. I'm an alpha, I live with my dad. You're a sim pro, and I'm just a chat. I'm a black belt, you know what it is. And my carpet is all covered in jizz. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playground, watching kids playing. I'm an alpha, I live with my dad. You're a sim pro, and I'm just a chat. I'm a black belt, you know what it is. And my carpet is all covered in jizz. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playground, watching kids playing. Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playground, watching kids playing. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playground, watching kids playing. Underground has the best video clips in town. TV Underground has the best video clips around. TV Underground has the best video clips in town. TV Underground has the best video clips around. TV Underground has the best video clips in town. TV Underground has the best video clips around. TV Underground has the best video clips in town. TV Underground has the best video clips around. TV Underground has the best video clips in town. TV Underground has the best video clips around.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another afternoon DP stream. I'm back again. I was streaming after midnight, less than 12 hours ago, back again to deliver to you, the people, another afternoon DP stream. Please do me a favor, give the stream a big fat like. Let all the people out there know that we're here, we're live. And also, those of you who are here that don't normally get to watch live, maybe you live on the other side of the country, maybe the other side of the planet, I'm here to let you get a little bit of live stream in. I appreciate you being here. We have the tip goal up at the top of the chat. If you want to click on that link, send us a couple bucks, get us a little closer to that goal, you can do it right there. Thank you so much. And we're going to go over the... It happened a couple days ago. There was a debate between Ted Cruz and a man named Colin Allred, who I believe was in Congress and before that was a professional football player. And it's pretty striking how Ted Cruz can't answer any questions, but we'll go over it. Once again, like the stream, and we're going to check this out right now. Here we go.
He called me sir, and got me so human angry.
People are discriminating against wolves.
Wow. They're laughing at us, at our stupidity.
Can you
I am learning to love it, Alex. I am absolutely learning to love it. And here it is. Here's the debate. And feel free to comment in the chat. I do have it on subscriber only mode, so if you're watching, you want to chat, just click the subscribe button in about 5 minutes. You'll be able to chat. I had to do this because people were using bots to comment in my chat, and it was ridiculous. So now this is how we're getting around that.
Live from downtown Dallas, Colin Allred and Ted Cruz in the Texas debate.
Tonight, we are 3 weeks away from the November election, and over the next hour here, we want to help you get more familiar with the two men whose names you will see at the top of your ballot when you go vote. We'd like to welcome you to the Texas debate tonight. I'm Jason.
Okay, the guy on the right looks like he's in front of a crappy green screen, kind of like me. The guy on the left almost looks like he's really there. You can see the bright lights reflecting on his glasses, but I guess they're both in front of a green screen here. For some reason, the guy on the right, it's more obvious that he's on a green screen than the guy on the left. I don't know why. Like his shoulders and everything just seem artificial. And maybe it's the shoulder pads in his suit jacket. I don't know.
Whiteley from WFAA in Dallas-Fort Worth.
And I'm Gromer Jeffers from the Dallas Morning News.
Polls show the race for U.S. Senate in Texas here is a close one. Ted Cruz and Colin Allred both agreed to meet here in Dallas tonight to discuss their philosophies and explain how they are different if one of them is elected, when one of them rather is elected to represent us in the U.S. Senate for the next 6 years.
First, the rules for this debate. Both candidates agreed to the following. Candidates will get 90 seconds to answer a question. His opponent then gets 90 seconds to respond, and we will go back to the first candidate for a 60-second rebuttal.
Fairly straightforward, I would say, right?
An additional follow-up of 60 seconds will be at the discretion of the moderators.
We have several countdown clocks in the studio here with us that the candidates can see tonight to help keep them on track time-wise. Finally, both candidates will get 1 minute each to introduce themselves here in just a moment. At the end of the debate, they will get another 60 seconds for a closing statement. Now let's welcome the candidates for U.S. Senate in Texas.
I do want to go through the polling really quick before this starts. So there was a poll done early to mid-October where Cruz was only leading by 1%. Now there's a couple where he's up by 6, 7, but it's very close. I think, I don't know, I think the people of Texas are sick of Cruz. He's been there for a really long time. And there's a chance that he could lose this, but the polling is suggesting Cruz will win narrowly. I don't know what I wish they would post the margin of error next to all of these, so I knew like if this percentage was within that margin. But it's pretty crazy. It's quite crazy. Like Texas of all states.
Tonight, Democrat Colin Allred and Republican Ted Cruz.
Colin Allred was a NFL player, an NFL linebacker. Big guy. So I wish they would have like a wrestling match, like an MMA match after this. Look at the size difference.
Gentlemen, thank you each for being here tonight. Mr. Allred, you won the coin toss for the opening introduction to go first. You chose to go first. You have 60 seconds, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you all for moderating, and Senator Cruz, thank you for joining. I'm Colin Allred. I'm a fourth-generation Texan. I'm a husband and a father. I was raised here in Dallas by a single mom who's a public school teacher, and I've been shaped by every part of this state. My grandfather was a customs officer in Brownsville. That's where my mom and aunt were born and raised, where I spent a lot of my childhood. I was captain of the Baylor football team in Waco, trained for the NFL draft in Houston, and I've served my hometown in Dallas in Congress for the last 6 years. In that time, I've been the most bipartisan Texan in Congress. I'm the exact opposite of Senator Cruz.
So he's a congressman looking to take that next step up on the federal political ladder from Congress to Senate. When you're in the Senate, you have more voting power because there's only 100 of those, and there's way more representatives than that. So he's making that move, that vertical leap And it's a long term. It's a 6-year term.
Cruz, who's the most extreme senator in the United States Senate, maybe the most extreme in the last 30 years. But that's not enough. He's also only focused on himself. That's how you can go to Cancun when millions of Texans need you.
Yes, point one. Oh, shit. Damn it. I did not mean to do that.
Live from downtown
Hold on, I'm gonna skip ahead to
Dallas.
that.
Very clear. Down. His parents can work.
When millions of He's also only focused on himself. That's how you can go to Cancun.
He's bringing up the fact that Ted Cruz skipped town when the big what was it, like the big weather emergency they were having there where people were freezing to death. He flew to Mexico instead.
When millions of Texans need you and hundreds are dying. The truth is, we don't have to be embarrassed by our senator. We can get a new one. That's what this election is all about. That's what I'm asking Texans to give me a chance to do.
Senator, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
So congressional representatives only get 2 years and senators get 6 years. So that means Ted Cruz has been in there for a very long time.
Thank you, Gromer. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to everyone at home listening. You know, Texas is an incredible place. I'm the son of an immigrant who came from Cuba with nothing, penniless, washed dishes making 50 cents an hour, but came to Texas to seek out the American dream.
He went to Canada first, right? Because you were born in Canada. Isn't that true? Yeah, he was born in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He was born in 1970 and had his citizenship there until 2014. So his father didn't come to America for the American dream right away. They went to Canada for the Canadian dream.
And Colin Allred is the son of a single mom who became a football star. He went on to Baylor, went on to the NFL. Now he's a United States congressman. It is incredible that both Congressman Allred and I have the great privilege of representing the people of Texas in the United States Congress. Tonight, I'm going to ask you to listen very carefully to the difference between words and actions. Colin Allred is going to try to say an awful lot of words that sound reasonable. But what he's not going to talk about is his own record or my record. And I'm over and over again going to take us back to actual records, his record and my record. We're doing an awful lot right in the state of Texas. Colin Allred wants to change that. I want to keep Texas, Texas.
Senator, that is your time. We do want to begin the debate tonight with two big issues that are personal to Texans.
Looks like his father wasn't even a citizen of the U.S. until 2005.
Senator, the first question is for you. Texas has one of the strictest abortion bans in the United States. There's no exception for rape or for incest, as you know. In 2021, you co-sponsored a bill in Congress that included...
And his real name is Raphael, by the way, too. He de-Latinized himself and chose like a pretty bland Anglo name, Ted. That's because his middle name is Edward, which I don't understand why Ted is short for Edward, but it is. But his name is Raphael Cruz.
Those exceptions. But a year later, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, you said that you agree with the Texas law that has 0 exceptions. So tonight, the question is, where do you stand on this? And we're asking for your personal opinion.
Oh, he does not answer this question. They're like, so do you actually support no exceptions for an abortion ban? He dances around it like it's a landmine in the middle of the room.
As a Texan and as a father.
Well, listen, abortion is an issue that many Texans, many Americans care deeply about. And it's an issue that people of good faith can disagree. People are genuinely and deeply pro-life. People are genuinely and deeply pro-choice. And there are all sorts of positions in between. I agree with the United States Supreme Court that under our Constitution, the way we resolve questions like that, questions on which we have real and genuine disagreements, is at the ballot box, is voting. And that's why the state of the law now is that the legislature in Austin sets the laws in Texas. You wouldn't expect Texas's laws to be the same as California. You wouldn't expect Alabama to be the same as New York. I will say, though, in Texas, on the question of abortion, there are a lot of areas we disagree, but there's also a lot of consensus. In Texas, we overwhelmingly support that parents should be notified and have to consent before their child gets an abortion. In Texas, we overwhelmingly agree that late-term abortion...
I mean, they can be notified, but they don't have to consent. They don't get to force their children to have a baby. They don't get to force them to have an abortion either, but they have no say in whether or not it happens, is what I'm saying. If they can't force them to have an abortion, they can't force them to not have one.
In the 8th and 9th months, that's too extreme. And I'll tell you, in Texas, we overwhelmingly agree that taxpayer money shouldn't pay for abortions. Unfortunately, Congressman Allred's voting record rejects that Texas consensus. He has voted in favor of striking down Texas's law that gives parents the right to be notified and consent. He's voted in favor of striking down Texas's law and legalizing abortion up to and including the 8th and 9th month of pregnancy. That's extreme, and it's not where the people of Texas are.
Senator, that's your time. Congressman, 90 seconds for a response.
Well, listen, it's time to finally tell the truth here. Senator Cruz just looked into a camera and lied to Texans about my position. Let's be very clear. You should look into the camera and speak to Kate Cox, who's watching right now, and explain to her why you said that this law that you said is perfectly reasonable, why she was forced to leave her 2 children behind and flee our state to get the care that she needed. Or look into the camera and talk to Amanda Zarowski, who's watching right now, and explain to her why it's perfectly reasonable that because she had a complication in her pregnancy and was denied care so long that she may never be able to have children of her own. Or to the 26,000 Texas women who've been forced to give birth to their rapist child under this law that you called perfectly reasonable. It's not. This is not freedom. I trust Texas women to make their own healthcare decisions. You know, Allie and I have had 2 baby boys here in Dallas in the last 5 years. You're scared the entire time. You don't know what they're gonna say. But I can't imagine if the doctor would come in, said there's a problem with the baby or a problem with Allie, but there's nothing I can do because Ted Cruz thinks he knows better. That's not who we are as Texans. When I'm in the United States Senate, we'll restore a woman's right to choose. We'll make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again. And we'll make these stories of seeing these horrific experiences going on all over our state.
Yeah, Lion Ted, that was actually one of the few very true things that Trump said. He is Lion Ted. And that's going to be a reoccurring theme during this debate here.
Something of the past. That's my commitment to Texans.
Congressman, thank you. Senator, you did not directly answer the question. I want to ask to you again. Do you support or oppose exceptions for rape or for incest? Again, asking as a Texan and as a father tonight.
So I want to be very clear. If you listen to...
I want to be very clear. No, you don't. You don't want to be very clear. You want it to be ambiguous and nebulous. You don't want to give straight answers.
Congressman Allred's answer. At no point did he make any reference to his own record. He desperately wants to hide from the fact that as a congressman, he voted to strike down Texas's parental notification law. He voted to strike down Texas's parental consent law. He voted to legalize late-term abortions, including the 8th and 9th months. He says he wants to codify Roe versus Wade, but that's not what he voted for. And I'll tell you what, tonight I suspect he's going to run away from his record on a whole lot of issues. We have a website. It's called allredfacts.com. Allredfacts.com. Every time he gives an answer, just click on allredfacts.com, and we'll show you the exact vote he cast. Now, as for what the law should be in Texas, that's a decision that will be made by the state legislature. You know, Congressman Allred is running all sorts of ads saying that I made this decision. I don't serve in the state legislature. I'm not the governor. The folks that make the laws here are the state legislature and the governor. He knows that. But he's trying to deceive the voters of Texas.
I want to jump in here because I think it's too important.
We'll give you 60 seconds.
I want to be very clear to the people of Texas. I support the protections and the restrictions under Roe. But Senator Cruz just called himself pro-life. You're not. You're not pro-life. It's not pro-life to deny women care so long that they can't have children anymore. It's not pro-life to force a victim of rape to carry their rapist's baby. It's not pro-life that our maternal mortality rate has skyrocketed up by 56%. That's not pro-life, Senator. So
that is crazy if that's true. That maternal mortality rate has gone up 50% since they changed these laws. And that's like criminal shit. And that's on the heads of Trump and all the people he put into the Supreme Court and everyone that supports it.
Every Texas woman at home and every Texas family watching this, understand that when Ted Cruz says he's pro-life, he doesn't mean yours.
Senator, I want to give you 60 seconds too. I want to ask you again, why is this an issue you want to address about saying whether...
Why is this an issue you won't address? See, I haven't read anything about his response to how this debate went, but of course he's going to say that the moderators were just against him. He's going to pull the Trump card.
Do you support or oppose?
Thanks to all of you for watching the stream. Do me a favor and hit the like button. And I'm looking for anyone who wants to share your feelings on this. I'll read them out loud during the stream. If you want to send us a couple bucks to help me reach the weekly goal, I would be more than happy if you could do that. Trying to get to at least 50% during this stream. We're at 47 right now.
Exceptions like
Jason,
rape
I'm curious. Why do you keep asking me that? But yet, hold on a second. I've asked Congressman Allred twice about his voting record and the fact that he voted to strike down Texas's parental notification law and parental consent law. You haven't asked him about that. That is his record. He doesn't deny it. He gives language that is disconnected from the actual voting record he has. And listen, my view, I believe in democracy. If Congressman Allred does not like the decisions that the state legislature has made, if he doesn't like the decisions the governor has made, then he is welcome to run for state legislature or run for governor. But in Congress, neither one of us have a vote. I have not voted to strike down Texas's law. Congressman Allred has. Congressman Allred has voted to tell you, a mother at home, you have no right to know if your daughter's getting an abortion. That's an extreme position. And
Mr. Beast got hawk to wood?
I can tell you the overwhelming majority of Texans do not agree with Congressman Allred's extreme position against...
He's an extremist! They always do that. Radical liberal! Radical liberal!
Parental rights, against the rights of a mom and dad to be with their daughter in a horrific and challenging time.
Senator, let's move on to another topic.
Let's turn.
They can be with their daughter, they just can't force her to choose one way or the other. Or they shouldn't be able to.
Border security. Congressman, this next question is for you. In 2018, you called Trump's proposal to expand the border wall racist. You said, my generation will be the one that tears it down. But last year, you said you supported President Biden's plan to expand the border wall. Congressman, why the change in position?
Listen, thank you for the question. This is personal for me. My family's from Brownsville. My grandfather was a customs officer there. He joined the Customs Department in 1939. That's where my mom and my aunt.
Wow, 1939? Wow, I don't know how old he is, but I'm surprised. Because that would make his father way older than mine. Like way, way older.
We're born and raised, and where I spent a lot of my childhood.
You feel like getting to know how other people is feeling, a coping mechanism to hide how you really feel. You feel me, bruh? You feel me, bruh?
I feel that was a lot of wordplay right there. I need, I've existed all month without my coping mechanism, which is okay. I feel pretty good. I feel like that you feel like getting to know how other people is feeling, a coping mechanism to hide how you really feel. You feel me, bruh?
And I know that our border communities are real places where folks are trying to raise their families and get ahead. But time and again, Senator Cruz treats our border communities like he's going on some kind of a safari.
No, this guy is younger than me. I just looked him up. He's born in 83. So he's like 2 years younger than me. But he must have had a way older father.
He puts on his outdoor clothes. He tries to look tough. And he goes back to Washington and does nothing to help. In fact, he does worse than nothing. When the toughest border security bill in a generation came up in the United States Senate, $20 billion for border security, he said, we don't need a border bill. That's what he said. And listen, this is a pattern for him. He's never there for us when we need him. When the lights went out in the energy capital of the world, he went to Cancun. On January 6th, when a mob was storming the Capitol, he was hiding in a supply closet. And when the toughest...
No, I was born in 81. I'm 43.
Border security bill in a generation came up in the United States Senate. He took it down. We don't have to have a senator like this. Let me be very clear. I believe in physical barriers as part of a comprehensive strategy to secure the border. We had a bill for $20 billion for 1,000 new Border Patrol agents, for more immigration judges, more asylum officers to help us deal with the backlog. I wanted to make sure we passed that. When I'm in the Senate, we will. And we'll also fix our broken legal immigration system. Senator Cruz has had forever, and he's done nothing to solve this problem. Why would we believe that he will with 6 more years?
Senator, you have 90 seconds for a response.
Well, I want to note once again in his entire answer, Congressman Allred made zero reference to anything he's actually done in office. As Gromer Jeffers rightly noted in his question, Congressman Allred has said publicly, if you believe border security matters, he thinks you're a racist. He calls the border wall, quote, that racist border wall, and he has pledged to tear down that racist border wall personally. And he said, quote, we will not have that wall in this country. And by the way, that's been his consistent voting record. He's voted against the border wall not once, not twice, but 3 times. Every single time there's a serious measure in the House to secure the border, Colin Allred votes no. Look, it's a pattern we've seen actually at the presidential level because it's what Kamala Harris does as well. And understand at home,
the border wall is ineffective.
Colin Allred.
There already is wall, and people just get around it or under it or over it. And most of it is not a wall, it's a fence.
Is Kamala Harris. Their records are the same. I've served with both of them. They voted in favor of open borders over and over and over again, and now they are desperately trying to hide that from the voters. Now, at the end, Congressman Allred said, well, gosh, Cruz hasn't done anything on that. Well, let's talk about my record. When Donald Trump was president, I worked hand in hand with President Trump to secure the border, and we achieved incredible success. We produced the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. That's what Joe...
I mean, was that when COVID was going on? When, like, everything was locked down everywhere?
Biden and Kamala Harris inherited. It's what Colin Allred inherited, and they deliberately broke it and opened the border, and Texas is paying the price.
Senator, that's your time. Congressman Allred, in your 60-second response, can you address the original question? Yeah. Why was Trump's border wall bad?
Listen,
why is Biden
what I've always said is that we have to make sure that as we're talking about border security, that we don't fall into demonizing. And you can take something out of context from 7 years ago, which is what he's trying to do. But he doesn't want to talk about what he said this year, which is that we don't need a border bill. So I have a simple question for you.
Sure.
The $20 billion for 1,000 new Border Patrol agents, for 100 new immigration judges, for 4,000 asylum personnel, to help us have technology to catch fentanyl coming across the border. Why did you not support that, Senator?
It's a great question. Can I take his time and answer?
No, you can't have my time.
But what I'm saying,
you can jump in after me. Yeah, that's fine.
Let him finish his
More
time.
than happy to answer
This is not the United States. I'm not yielding my time. It's fine. It's fine.
Don't ask me questions.
No, I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer when you have time.
Don't ask me questions.
The point is that we had a bill. This is a pattern. He talks tough, but he never shows up. We have a phrase for this in Texas: all hat and no cattle. That's what Senator Cruz is. 6 more years of this? Come on. He's had 12 years.
All hat, no cattle. I had never heard that because I watched a little bit of this beforehand. I wasn't aware of that phrase, but it makes sense. It's like someone who dresses like a cowboy, but they don't actually have a ranch. They don't actually have cattle. They're not a real cowboy, but they wear like the 10-gallon hat.
To do it already. Give someone who actually will a chance.
He's a poser is basically what he's saying.
Thanks, Congressman. Senator, now you take 60 seconds to respond.
Well, Congressman Allred has memorized his lines well. I will say this, though. He asked, what have you done? We produced the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years, working hand in hand with President Trump. He didn't address that. He also didn't address the fact that it didn't take a bill for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Colin Allred to break the border. It took a president refusing to enforce the law. You know, you can watch and listen to Congressman Allred talk about the border on allredfacts.com. But I can tell you what he also said just a couple of years ago. He said, you know, I don't hear much about the border here in Dallas. It's not a top-of-mind issue. And I got to say, I've represented Dallas and the whole state for 12 years. I hear about it every...
12 years!
Are you an alien coming out of Ted Cruz's stomach?
Yes. I wish I had like a navy blue blanket to make it look like I'm... Thank you, by the way. We're at 48%. My short-term goal for this stream is 50%, but, you know, I won't complain if we push it a little further. Thank you so much.
Where I go, I hear about it in Dallas, the folks concerned about the Dallas woman who Venezuelan gangs broke into her house, tied her up, pistol whipped her with a gun, threatened to cut her fingers off, and robbed her. I hear about it in Houston from the mother of Jocelyn Nungary, the 12-year-old girl who was raped and murdered by Venezuelan illegal immigrants that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris released. And when you say you don't care about it, you're not listening to Texans.
It's funny how they only care about those kind of crimes when it's done by illegal immigrants, because we know it happens by legal immigrants and citizens, probably more. They only care about it when it's by illegal immigrants, though.
Gentlemen, let's move on to a different topic.
That's the only time they actually mention it.
Here, let's turn to the economy. One of the big pain points for Texans, as you likely know, Senator, is the high cost of insurance.
Yes, and Ted would have forced her to have the baby.
Last 5 years, premiums for home and auto insurance in Texas have risen faster here in Texas than anywhere else in the country. Some insurers have stopped writing new policies or they limit the coverage that they offer Texans. This has happened in other places like Florida, like California, where climate change is causing extreme weather events. The question, Senator, does insurance need a federal solution?
Well, no, it doesn't. Insurance is much better handled at the state level. And I'll tell you, when it comes to inflation, inflation is caused by the policies of Kamala Harris and Congressman Allred.
Yes, immigrants, both legal and illegal, commit less crime than native-born citizens. I mean, like, the sheer numbers should make that a no-brainer. There's way more native-born citizens than immigrants, both legal and legal combined. Both legal and illegal combined, rather.
Kamala Harris and Congressman Allred, they came in and they went on a spending binge. They spent trillions of dollars we didn't have. They borrowed trillions of dollars from China that we didn't have, and they ran the printing presses. And I and many others said, if you do this, you're going to drive up inflation. And they didn't care. And I'll tell you, Texans at home are experiencing it. If you're a senior on fixed income, you're finding it harder and harder to pay your bills. If you're a working couple...
Yes, even per capita.
Just buying your first home, you're discovering a 7% mortgage is very different than a 2.5%. If you're trying to fill your tank with gas, or you're a single mom worried about getting braces for your daughter, the inflation caused by Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's spending binge is hurting Texans across the board. And I got to tell you, inflation has in particular been exacerbated by Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's war on energy and oil and gas in Texas. Understand, over and over again, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put executive orders in place to hurt energy, and Colin Allred has voted against Texas oil and gas and energy over and over again. He voted in favor of Joe Biden's ban on new permits to export liquid natural gas, and he voted in favor of Joe Biden's ban on new gasoline-powered engines. Starting in 8 years, 2/3 of all new cars have to be electric, and Colin Allred voted in favor. That drives inflation at home.
Senator, that's your time. A lot to respond to there, Congressman.
Sure. Well, listen, I agree that that insurance is better handled at the local level and the state level. But let's talk about inflation, because, you know, I was raised by a single mom who's a public school teacher in a state where we don't pay our teachers enough. And so I know what it's like to go through the grocery store line and swipe your debit card and just say a little prayer and hope that this week you can afford it. That's why I've been so laser focused on lowering folks' costs, on lowering the cost of your prescription drugs, on your health care, on your child care, on your housing. You know, we thought it was a good idea to cap the cost of insulin for folks on Medicare at $35 a month. I voted for it. Senator Cruz apparently disagreed. We tried to cap it for everyone because 1 in 4 Americans are rationing their insulin. You know what rationing your insulin means? It means you're not taking the medication you need to survive. And so we said, let's make sure that this is affordable. I was willing to do it and voted for it. Senator Cruz voted against it. You know, and it's not surprising. He's also one of the biggest recipients of campaign donations from big pharma lobbyists in the entire United States Senate. It's true. But this is a pattern. You know, this is somebody who goes to the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun. Do you really think he cares about inflation and about working families? When his entire career, he spent his time trying to cut taxes for the rich and not looking out for working folks.
The best thing Ted Cruz ever did was grow the beard, because he looked like such a fat-faced weenie with like no chin or jawline. I mean, you could see his neck. It's like melting out of his, you know, collared shirt right there. So the beard creates the illusion of a more defined jawline where he has pretty much no jawline at all. At all.
In the Senate, we'll have somebody who will try to represent all 30 million of us and make sure we keep a focus on lowering your costs everywhere we can.
Congressman, thank you. Senator, you have 60 seconds.
Well, you notice once again, Congressman Allred takes no responsibility for his own voting record, takes no responsibility for the trillions in spending that have driven inflation, takes no responsibility for the war on Texas energy and LNG and oil and gas. Instead, what he says is, well, gosh, he's voted to lower the price of insulin. Well, so did I. I voted on the Senate floor to lower the price of insulin to $1 a vial. And you know what? The Democrats blocked that. I'll tell you, President Trump put in a program to put in place affordable insulin. As soon as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came into office, they pulled that out. You know what Congressman Allred also voted in favor of? He voted in favor of taking $300 billion from Medicare and using it to pay for Kamala Harris's pet project, using it to pay for health insurance for illegal aliens. That is driving up the cost. Just Medicare premiums under Congressman Allred have gone up 20%, and they are projected to triple. I will fight to lower premiums and make health care more affordable and give you, the consumer, greater choice.
All right, let's turn to a topic that's been a hot button issue in your Senate campaign. Congressman, your opponent is saying in political ads that you refuse to protect the integrity of women and girls sports. The most recent ad actually came out today. Congressman, where do you stand on transgender athletes in women's sports?
Well, let's be very clear. Let's be very clear about what's happening in this campaign. This is such a non-issue. Like this was never like the problem is so greatly exaggerated. This is not the most important issue facing our country right now. You don't have to be a former NFL linebacker to recognize a Hail Mary when you see one. This is a desperate, last-second attempt by Senator Cruz to distract you because he can't defend his own record. Listen, I'm a dad, I'm a Christian. Of course I don't support these ridiculous things that he's talking about. But what he wants you thinking about is kids in bathrooms, so you're not thinking about women in hospitals. Because it's indefensible. It's indefensible that we have Texas women being turned away from hospitals, bleeding out in their cars, in waiting rooms, being found by their husbands. So all of a sudden, and this is a good one, all of a sudden, the protector of women and girls is going to be Senator Cruz, who thinks it's perfectly reasonable that if a girl is raped by a relative of hers, a victim of incest, that she should be forced to carry that child to term and give birth to it. You think that's perfectly reasonable, but now you're going to set yourself up as a protector of women and girls? It's laughable. And listen, he's trying to distract you because what can he run on? I've never seen somebody who runs for office on what he hasn't done. He's been one of the least productive senators in the entire country. You know that. I talk to Texans all the time who say, I can't think of anything Ted Cruz has done to help me in my life. When I'm your senator, I'll keep focused on the issues that matter to you, on lowering your costs, on securing the border, on restoring a woman's right to choose. That's what I'll be focused on.
Senator Cruz, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, it was striking once again in that answer. He said not a word about his own record. I have to admit, the beginning of it reminded me of Kamala Harris in her debates, answering everything. Look, I was born in the middle class. It's some lines that sound nice that ignore his record. Let's just talk about his voting record. Again, you can go to allredfacts.com. You can see the actual votes.
He has a propaganda website where he got the domain Allred Facts. And he's using that to be like, go there for the truth. It's like, how do we know? How can we trust that everything you write on this website is the truth? You've lied so many times right here.
4 times he has come out for men playing in women's sports, for boys playing in girls' sports. He is a co-sponsor, and he voted for a law called the Equality Act. The Equality Act mandated that boys be able to go in girls' bathrooms, in their locker rooms, in their changing rooms. He voted for it. That is his record. Number 2, there was a bill. It was a very simple bill. It was narrowly defined. It was protecting women and girls' sports. He voted no. The only issue on that bill was whether biological boys should compete against our daughters. That's not fair. Congressman Allred was an NFL linebacker. It is not fair for a man to compete against women. The 3rd time he signed on to something called the Transgender Bill of Rights. Transgender Bill of Rights explicitly, and he co-sponsored it, mandated that boys compete against girls' sports.
Mandated it? I doubt that.
And just 2 weeks ago, Congressman Allred joined 100 radical Democrats in demanding that our military allow drag shows on military bases, pay for soldiers to have sex changes using taxpayer money, and pay for children to be sterilized and have sex changes on military bases. Again, that's extreme. That's not Texas.
Senator,
but that's
This sounds all. This seems like there's quite a bit of spin on
is
this.
his voting
Senator,
record.
that's your time.
Yeah.
Congressman,
Well, thank you.
there's a lot to respond to there. You have 60 seconds.
I mean, it's a lot. And I stand here as a proxy for millions of Texans who are sick and tired of this act. You know, when Ted Cruz starts talking about team sports, you got to watch out because the only position he ever played was left out. And I'm not trying to be mean, Senator, but just sit this one out, please. Listen, I don't support boys playing girls sports. I don't.
Why'd you vote for
No,
it?
stop. Let me speak. What I think is that folks should not be discriminated against. And what Senator Cruz should try to explain to you is why he thinks they should. But ultimately, what he's trying to do is a little game called distraction, to distract you from his record of doing horrific things to folks in this state, of abandoning us when we need him most, of not being there when we need him. That's what he's trying to do, and that's why he's spending so much time on this.
All right, Senator.
Romer, I'd like 60 seconds on that.
Well, I have a question for you in those 60 seconds. Parents of transgender youth are worried about the safety and well-being of their kids and say ads like these, like the ones that you are running, are dangerous. What do you say to those parents?
Look, we should protect every child. We should protect every person. I have advocated protecting the safety of every child, of every person, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, sexual identity. Everyone deserves to be protected against violent crime, against discrimination. But Congressman Allred hasn't said that. He hasn't voted for that. He's voted repeatedly. Look, I know a lot of y'all at home, for example, saw two biological men competing in women's boxing at the Olympics. That was wildly unfair. You know, my
I really don't think he's coming off as fake. I think he's not as good of a bullshit artist as Ted Cruz is. And I think, he started his career as an athlete, not a politician. He probably got into where he is because he's a well-known athlete. I don't feel like he's being disingenuous. He's a little stiff, in my opinion. Like, he seems nervous.
youngest daughter plays volleyball. It's not fair for a biological boy or man, a teenage boy, to spike the volleyball ladder. And he has voted repeatedly in favor of that. If you want to see extreme, I encourage you to read the letter Congressman Allred signed. It is on allredfacts.com. You can read it. Don't trust my description of it. Read the words yourself. You know what he argued for?
Denmarkia will
Yes!
What
Denmarkia! For the win! You can check all the guests and the schedule when we're having episodes by checking out the DP calendar, and I'm going to link that to everybody because that will, let me see here. Obviously, it's always subject to change, but let me do the link here. This is the this is directly from the calendar that I keep on my phone and update as soon as I know any changes are occurring. And I'm working on getting Jeff back on again. Unfortunately, Jeff had a death in his family. He made a video about it, so it's okay for me to talk about, I guess. His brother passed away. So he's been dealing with that right now. Otherwise, he would have been on already. So here's the calendar. I'll put it in the description for anyone who watches this later. I love 102s. You guys got to give some 102s some love. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm working on booking the first 2 weeks of next month too. I just got to figure out some things and yeah.
Military bases should have drag shows and should be able to fly a transgender flag above it. Look, call me old-fashioned. I think the only flag that should fly above our military
Senator,
base should be the American flag.
That's your time, Senator.
He's bringing up all these like unfalsifiable things. It's like, yeah, maybe a few places they want to fly the pride flag on a military base. Why does this matter? Like, I don't know about it. Like, I don't care if they do it, but I'm saying like it only matters to people in the military. This isn't like a pressing issue. This is not an important issue. It's all these culture war issues. He's trying to appeal to people that feel like they have this super high moral fiber granted to them by their religion, and most people who are like that are just hypocrites anyway. They sniff their own farts. They receive their copium by sticking their face in their own butt crack.
Congressman, 60 seconds to respond. And if you can, clearly outline where you stand on transgender.
And it's funny because he's like, oh, they should only fly the American flag. Well, in Texas, they can fly the Texas flag as high as the American. I don't care about any of this shit. I'm just saying.
Shit on Sweden. Denmarkians clearly loves you more.
Denmarkians do like me. I don't know a lot of Swedish people, to be honest with you. Not too many. What was it? Oh, so like these are all dumb rules, like dumb flag rules. But like in most states, you're not supposed to fly your state flag high at the same height as the American flag. Whatever. But in Texas, they do it at the same height because their excuse is Texas used to be its own country. And I hear a lot of dumb people say that Texas was the only state that was its own country first, which is not true. Texas was its own country, I think, for like 10 years. California was its own country for like 2 weeks. Hawaii was its own country for it was like a kingdom for who knows how long. Probably before Europeans ever found, the islands there. Long before. And then Vermont for I think 17 years, 14 to 17 years, something like that. So Vermont was its own country even longer than Texas.
Yeah.
In women's
Well,
sports.
listen, as I said, I don't support boys playing girls' sports, but let's be clear about the Equality Act, which was a bipartisan vote in the Congress. It was endorsed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. For folks at home who don't know what that is, that's basically the biggest speaking organ for the business community. By the National Association of Manufacturers, this is not...
It's funny because when Europeans first found Hawaii, they renamed it the Sandwich Islands after the Earl of Sandwich, who, coincidentally enough, is the person credited with inventing the sandwich, which is also a weird thing. And that's like an aristocratic House of Lords kind of thing where like the aristocracy gets seats in the parliament. There's like the elected side, and they've really dialed down the House of Lords and what they are capable of, but they used to have a lot of power back in the day.
A radical bill. What it's saying is that folks shouldn't be discriminated against. But what Ted Cruz wants to do apparently is. But he also, again, just wants to distract you. That's what he's going to do. He's been doing it for 12 years. Folks are sick of it. I hear from you all the time about it. Let's turn the page and let's elect someone else.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, let's move on to January 6th. And question for you. Your own words and statements have changed since January 6, 2021. At one point, you called the insurrection a violent terrorist act, saying anyone who commits an actual act of violence should be prosecuted. President Trump has said he would consider pardoning the rioters.
Yeah. How are you going to reconcile this hypocrisy? You guys familiar with the term flying monkeys? It's like a psychological term that people use to describe people who help narcissists carry out their and very often many of them are narcissists themselves. Basically, Well, no, it comes from the Wizard of Oz. It's an analogy that like the Wicked Witch is like of the West is like a narcissist, and her flying monkeys attack people on her behalf. Trump is the narcissist, and people like Ted Cruz and others are his flying monkeys that do his bidding, and many of them are narcissists in of themselves. That's what it is. And yes, AIU did have flying monkeys, so he was just admitting it. I mean, some people are proud of it. Usually only other narcissists think it's cool to be a narcissist.
Do you support that? You have 90 seconds.
So, Gromer, thank you for that question. Listen, my view is clear. I think anyone who commits an act of violence should be prosecuted and should go to jail. If you assault a police officer, you should go to jail for a very long time. And by the way, that's true whether I happen to agree with your politics or disagree with your politics. I've spent 12 years fighting to defend the men and women of law enforcement. That's why I've been endorsed by the leaders of organizations, over 44,000 law enforcement officers. That's why I've been endorsed by Kim Ogg, the Democrat district attorney in Harris County. She is the twice elected Democrat, the chief law enforcement officer.
There's actually two types of flying monkeys in this analogy. There's the malevolent flying monkey and the benevolent flying monkey. And the benevolent one honestly has convinced themselves that they're doing the right thing. They've been convinced either way. And then there's the malevolent flying monkey where they don't care what's true. They might even know, what they're doing is wrong, but they're justifying their actions based on whatever excuses they come up with in their own mind.
Officer in Houston. She's endorsed me.
If you want to be one, go ahead and be one.
In this race. Why? Because she wants a senator who will stand with law enforcement.
I'm not talking about literal flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. I'm talking about the psychological term.
Will lock up criminals and fight to secure the
literal monkeys are great.
Border. And unfortunately, Congressman Allred's record on crime has been terrible. Congressman Allred has voted not once but twice in favor of defunding the police. Let me tell you what a disaster defunding the police had been. The defund the police movement started in 2019. From 2019 to 2023, let me tell you what happened to the murder rate. In Houston, it went up 29%. Right here in Dallas, it went up 17%. In San Antonio, it went up 57%. And my view, Congressman Allred is happy to talk about those who committed acts of violence on January 6th, but you don't hear him talking about the Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots that burned cities across this country. If you commit an act of violence, you should go to jail, and there should be no political favoritism in that regard.
Congressman, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Oh, that was really something. I have to say, you can't be for the mob on January 6th and for the officers. You can't. And it's not funny.
It's not funny. I love that because, he's been kind of smirking and like chuckling a little bit at what he says. And finally he was like, it's not funny. And by the way, it's so funny how they do this I mean, I understand why they do it because I do it too when I put people in here. But it's funny because like when you look at this, you just assume they're like almost the same size. You know what I mean? Like height and like size, because suits kind of hide your physique. But I guarantee you, if they were in regular clothes, Ted Cruz would look like a fat schlub and this dude would look like a big, strong dude who's probably like 4 inches taller than Ted Cruz.
Threat to democracy.
Sure.
I was on the House floor when we went through the votes. I remember when you objected to the results in Arizona. Y'all at home might remember where you were on January 6th, what you were doing. I know where I was, and I know where he was. I remember when they told us to reach under our seats for these gas masks. I didn't know we had, because they had deployed tear gas in the rotunda. The officers locked all the doors. We barred the doors the president walks through to deliver the State of the Union with furniture that we usually use to hold paper.
This dude was an NFL linebacker. He wasn't the greatest one ever, but he played and got tackles and shit. So, like, he's just naturally strong. I don't know if he works out he probably doesn't work out like he did when he was playing because that's that's your job, basically, to work out and practice and then play. So, but he's probably pretty strong. You got to be really strong and heavy
And I texted my wife, Allie, who was 7 months pregnant with our son, Cameron, and at home with our son, Jordan, who wasn't yet 2. Whatever happens, I love you. And I took off my suit jacket, and I was prepared to defend the...
Yeah, so I love this story. He heard about the danger at the Capitol, and he took off his jacket and was ready to fight. And Ted Cruz went and hid in a closet somewhere.
House floor from the mob. At the same time, after he'd gone around the country lying about the election, after he'd been the architect of the attempt to overthrow that election, when that mob came, Senator Cruz was hiding in a...
By the way, this is what Ted Cruz looks like without his beard. Right here. Look at that. Look at that weak chin. Punchable face.
Supply closet. And that's okay.
He looks like a caricature of a real person.
I don't want him to get hurt by the mob. I really don't. This election is his accountability. You cannot just be patriotic when your side wins. If for the first time in 250 years, this project of ours, this shared American project, that we did not have a peaceful transfer of power, the folks responsible have to be held accountable. That's why Liz Cheney has endorsed me, has got involved in this campaign, and is saying to Texans everywhere, do not put Ted Cruz back in a position of authority, because he's done it once, he'll do it again.
Senator, you have 60 seconds for a rebuttal, but answer the question, would you support pardoning those convicted in the Capitol riot?
So look, I think the Biden-Harris administration has persecuted some engaged in peaceful speech, and if you are being persecuted for peaceful speech, absolutely you should be pardoned. If you engaged in violence, absolutely not, you should not be pardoned. But let me say something interesting. You know, the far left, they're so angry right now. There's so much hatred. You know, Congressman Allred just snarled at me, you're
the far left.
A threat to democracy. Now, let me be clear. I don't know Congressman Allred. I have no animus for him personally. But I do know his voting record. His voting record is radical and extreme. And you want to talk about threats to democracy? Let's take a vote that just happened a few weeks ago on the floor of the House, the SAVE Act.
When what's his name again? Colin Allred. I'm not remembering his name because I'm not going to see him on the ballot. Right now anyway. When Colin Allred played pro football, his stats were 6'1", 242 pounds. And it was probably mostly muscle. A lot of linebackers get they carry a little extra weight, like they don't have to be cut, you know. So a lot of NFL linebackers have guts because it's cool to have a little bit more weight to push around when you're that strong.
The SAVE Act provided that in order to register to vote, you got to prove you're an American citizen. Congressman Allred voted no. 11.5 million illegal immigrants have come into this country under Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's open border policies.
I like how it's it's Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's policies. I mean, like, he's completely ignoring who's president now. Not that it's like Biden's fault completely, you know, but it's just funny. Like he won't even name Biden because he know Biden isn't running. It's so transparent that he's just playing a political game.
And Congressman Allred votes no to protecting our elections and ensuring that people don't vote illegally. That is a threat to democracy.
Hardly anybody votes
Senator,
illegally.
Let's move on to another topic, gentlemen. Let's shift to foreign policy here. Congressman, you said you think there is no more practical military goal for Israel and that it can achieve in Gaza. As a U.S. Senator, though, how would you hold Hamas accountable for the worst terrorist attack in Israeli history back on October 7th of 2023? And what military approach would you like to see Israel take at this point in its war?
Yeah. Well, let's begin at the beginning. October 7th was a horrific terrorist attack by a terrorist organization in Hamas, the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. They bear the responsibility for this war. This is a war of choice by them. And Israel has a right to defend itself, and I have always stood up for their right to defend themselves.
Yes, they act like Kamala was president for the last 4 years. They had to start doing that. They thought they were running against the senile old man. It sucks for them. It's going to be tougher than it was. It seemed like, you know, a slam dunk, but not anymore. And in reality, these people know what the vice president can do, like what they're actually capable of doing. They have very little authority over a handful of things. But I mean, they can give their opinion. Like, they do get to meet with the president on a regular basis. and they can make suggestions, but ultimately the president calls the shots. And the president seems to listen more to their cabinet than the vice president.
On the Foreign Affairs Committee. I've been on it for the last 6 years, and I was in Israel not long before the attack happened. I visited a kibbutz along the Gaza border called Kfar Asa. While I was there, we shared a meal, and we were also FaceTiming with a Palestinian man in Gaza City who was a father of 4, talking about strengthening ties between Palestinians and Israelis. Kfar Asa on October 7th was the site of what an Israeli general called a massacre. And I don't know what's happened to that father of 4. But I can tell you this, folks on both sides of that fence deserve to have a future, one that's free of this cycle of violence. It's time for us to reach a negotiated settlement, to bring the hostages home, to also bring...
Why is that funny?
The remains, unfortunately, of the...
Why did Ted Cruz laugh right there at that?
Ones who have died in captivity. Hamas must be held accountable, and they will. According to the defense minister, Yoav Gallant.
What is funny about this situation at all? It is not funny. It is like one of the saddest and most disturbing things that has happened in recent years. It's just gruesome and horrifying. I can't wait. I hope some resolution comes quickly, because it's just like there's no... It's like... The main reason I hardly talk about it on the stream is because it's such a bummer and a downer that I really... It's the same reason I don't play videos of people abusing animals or like read news stories of people abusing animals. Like it's just so sad and like horrific that I just, it would bum me out. I wouldn't be able to do a long stream. I would be like, it's just ridiculous, because children are dying and all kinds of, like, people are being buried in rubble, and it's just, and now other countries are getting involved. It's just ridiculous. It's terrible.
They are no longer in a position to be able to pursue an October 7th style attack. But let's also be very clear. There was a vote in the United States Congress to provide aid to Israel, to provide aid to Ukraine, to Taiwan, to help with the humanitarian situation in Gaza. I voted for it. Senator Cornyn voted for it. Ted Cruz voted against it. You can't say that you are for supporting Israel and their right to defend themselves when you vote against that critical funding.
Congressman, thank you. Senator, same question for you. What military approach would you like to see Israel take at this point? Multiple fronts are opened up right now.
Well, thank you, Jason. I will say this issue is one of the clearest differences between Congressman Allred's record and my record. When I was elected 12 years ago, I resolved then to be the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate. And I've worked every day to do that, to stand up and fight to support Israel. I am proud to stand with Israel. Our position should be that America stands unshakably with Israel. When President Trump was president, I urged him to move our embassy to Jerusalem. He did, and I was there the day we opened the embassy in Jerusalem, and I've never seen such celebration. When President Trump was president, I urged him to pull out of the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. He did, and it was the single most important national security decision of his entire presidency. Congressman Allred has consistently lined up against Israel. At the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration, he urged them to send money to Gaza, even though it would go to Hamas. He has supported Kamala Harris and Joe Biden flowing over $100 billion to Iran. 90% of the funding for Hamas and Hezbollah comes from Iran. I'll tell you, Congressman Allred invited a radical imam here in Dallas who calls Zionists monsters and has compared them to Nazis. Congressman Allred calls them the very best of North Texas. I don't support those who engage in anti-Semitic actions, and I will tell you the funders of the anti-Semitic protest on college campuses are among Congressman Allred's biggest supporters. We need clarity. We need to draw a line, and as for me and my home, we will stand with Israel.
There were protesters at the University of Washington, and it was just a bunch of people camping out in an area, and when they were told to leave, they left. Like they were annoying. Like some of them were weird. Like there was a guy just trying to get video of it because it's like a news event, and they were fucking with him. Like that was pretty annoying. But he's acting like they're the terrorist. Like, they might as well have stormed the Capitol. I guarantee you, if like people who look like Antifa people stormed the Capitol, we'd never hear the end of it from them. So it's funny that they act like it's not that big of a deal.
Senator, thank you for that. Congressman.
Well, I wouldn't say completely the point of protesting is to be annoying. I would say the main point is to get your message out there, right? So when someone's filming you for the local news, it's a good opportunity to get your message out there and not look like an abrasive asshole so that people will hear it and maybe learn to agree with you. Like, if you just look like an immature, like, idiot who just wants to, like, behave like a child in public, you're not going to bring many people to your side. You can be an inconvenience, but you should, the point should be to get your message out there. If your message gets drowned in looking like you're crazy, then what's the point? Is it just to look crazy and be able to act crazy and have an excuse for it? Or is it to get a message out? That's how I feel about it.
And you have 60 seconds.
We have to talk about this because there was a vote. It's not about talking. It's about action. We had a vote in the United States Congress to provide military funding and aid to Israel, to Ukraine, to Taiwan, to address humanitarian issues in Gaza and around the world. Part of that aid package.
But yeah, my original point mentioning it is that they didn't cause that much trouble. They did, like, they were a nuisance for sure, but like, and some of them weren't at all. Like, the whole group, like, if the whole group would have been acting crazy, then there would have been a bigger problem. But it was just a couple people who were probably not really concerned about the message and were just looking for justification to act like idiots. You'll find that in any movement. That's going to happen.
Was $5 billion in the interceptors that were used in the Iron Dome to prevent the Iranian rockets that just rained down Israel a couple of weeks ago. That happened in spite of Senator Cruz. It was a very illuminating vote because the extremists were the ones who voted against it. The far left voted against it. The far right voted against it. I think there was only 18 senators who voted against it. And Ted Cruz was one of them. So you can't tell me.
Okay, I want to make one more comment and then I'm going to stop. Yes, I'm very much against blocking the roads. What if a fire truck has to get to a fire? You know, they blocked off the airport for a while. That's a thing where, like, there could be someone trying to get to the airport for a very important reason. You know, maybe they're going to a funeral or something like that, and they don't even know much about, you know, whatever cause it was the Palestinian conflict. They don't know anything about it. Maybe they're on the fence about it, and now you've just created someone by having that experience. Someone who is maybe like, well, these people are insane. They're blocking everyone from getting to the airport. You know, I just think there's better ways to get your message across. You know, there's plenty of places to have demonstrations. You can march in the street, like get authorization so they can shut down the road or whatever. Yeah.
You support Israel when the rubber meets the road and you're not there. But let's also be very clear. We have to find a negotiated diplomatic settlement to many of these issues. And that is what I'm going to try and contribute to when I'm in the United States Senate.
So I need 60 seconds to respond to that charge there. Now,
did you vote for it?
Well, let's actually get into it.
You voted against it.
So Congressman Allred is right that there was a bill that was on the floor of the Senate.
Thank you, Bobby Two Hands. I appreciate it. Man, we're doing so good at 61%. That is sweet.
And I oppose that bill. Why? Because I said at the time that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to flow money to Gaza and give it to Hamas, but they're going to freeze weapons to Israel. That's exactly what they did. And after that, the House of Representatives took up a bill to provide emergency weapons to Israel, and Congressman Allred voted no. Understand, every single time Congressman Allred, right now in this debate, he is echoing the calls of the enemies of Israel saying, ceasefire now. He claims there is nothing else to be done militarily. I'll tell you, when Israel detonated the pagers against Hezbollah, it was one of the most targeted and effective military actions we have ever seen. Congressman Allred is proud to be supported by J Street, the radical left organization that undermines Israel at every level. And I got to say, listen, that's dangerous. Right now, Kamala Harris and Colin Allred both want the votes of the anti-Semites on college campuses. I don't want their vote.
Yeah, this is just inflammatory trash.
They threaten Jewish students. They should be arrested. They should be prosecuted.
Yeah, you can't threaten people. He's grandstanding here. He's like, oh, I'm so outraged right now, I'm going to point my finger and get loud. It's like, yeah, you can't threaten people. Who's saying you can like threaten people and nothing should happen? Nobody. Or only the crazy people that no one wants to listen to.
They should be expelled.
Senator,
and if they're from another country, they should be deported.
Senator, that's your time, but let's stay right here. As you mentioned, you have been a strong advocate of Israel's right to defend itself, but the World Court has found it plausible that Israel has committed acts that violate the Genocide Convention. Do you think Israel bears any responsibility for the civilian deaths and humanitarian crisis in Gaza? You have 90 seconds.
I think there is no country on earth that fights a more humane, a more targeted, a more just war than the people of Israel. The World Court and the International Court of Justice is filled with anti-Semites. They repeatedly attack Israel over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, I've got real experience there. When I was the Solicitor General of Texas, I represented the state of Texas before the U.S. Supreme Court fighting against the World Court, and we won a 6-3 victory because the World Court was trying to attack Texas just like it's trying to attack Israel. Listen, Israel goes in, number one, it deliberately targets military targets. I mentioned the pagers before. I've never seen a military action that was actually the leadership of Hezbollah who decided who would get these pagers.
There's a lot of collateral damage. Like a ton.
And you had to be just enough of a psychopathic terrorist that Hezbollah wanted you on that pager. That's who detonated. It was precisely targeted. You know, Israel, when they go in, when they see, for example, military operations in a building, they send text to all the civilians there. They drop leaflets. They drop what's called a knock bomb on the top that just makes a noise to tell civilians clear out. There's no other nation that goes to the steps it does to avoid civilian casualties. You know who's responsible for the civilian deaths? Hamas, because they use human shields. And let's talk about records. I introduced legislation.
I mean, when someone's using a shield, it's still up to you to go on the attack. Like, the shield isn't causing the actual harm, right?
To sanction
collateral damage is a really bad part of war. I mean, that was... I remember, you know, the war in Iraq, we would get the numbers about the soldiers that were dying and all of the civilians killed. That's civilians being killed in war is awful.
Hamas for using human shields. That legislation passed into law. It is one of the 101 different pieces of legislation I've enacted, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refuse to enforce that law. They will not sanction Hamas, and Congressman Allred will not stand up to them.
That's your time. Congressman, does Israel bear any responsibility for civilian deaths and a humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
Well, listen, I will agree with Senator Cruz that Hamas is a terrorist organization that hides amongst the civilian populace.
This is donation has nothing to do with you, Ben. Just want to make sure I have donated more than King Frederick.
Oh, damn. It's a competition. Let me see where everyone is with this. Where is it? So King Frederick has given $102, and you have given $36. That's where we are right now, from what I see. Does that sound right?
Their battle plan. They anticipate and want civilian casualties. They put their tunnels beneath playgrounds, beneath elementary schools. They do this knowing that they make it more difficult to then target them without it causing civilian casualties. No one in Texas or across the country should shed any tears for Hamas. What we can do at the same time is have within our hearts the capacity to say that we want to prevent unneeded civilian suffering. And that is something that I've always believed, that we can separate. And we've done this our entire history as a country. This is what makes us great. It's what also makes democracies like Israel great, is that we can separate the terror.
Oh, monthly. Oh, I see. I think you're definitely, let me see. Top tippers month. Yes, you are yes, you did surpass King Frederick for sure.
First leaders of a group from the people who are being subjected to that.
Yeah, you have $170.68, and King Frederick's at $154 so far this month.
And so, to me, what we have had to keep our focus on is trying to provide as much aid as possible to innocent civilians in Gaza, to make sure that children are not being unnecessarily targeted. This has to be our responsibility. This has to be the Israeli responsibility. And that's something that I'll continue to work on in the Senate when I have a chance.
All right, thanks, Congressman.
Do I get 60 seconds?
Yes, that's. We're going to move on to
Senator. We have.
I thought it was 90, 96.
Yeah, this is. I apologize. Here we got off track. Yeah. You have 60 seconds to respond, sir.
You know, again, Congressman Allred did not address his own record, and that's a pattern at every level. You can go to allredfacts.com and you can see his votes. You can see his vote against providing weapons to Israel. You can see the letter Congressman Allred signed. He joined with over 100 left-wing Democrats at the beginning of the Biden administration saying, please send money to Gaza, even though it'll go to Hamas and be used for terrorism. And by the way, I led 19 senators in urging the administration, do not send money to Gaza because it will be used by Hamas for terrorism. We now know how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris resolved that. The administration concluded it was, quote, highly likely that the money would be used by Hamas for terrorism. But you know what they did? They sent it anyway. They waived U.S.
To me, his voice sounds like a goofy cartoon character's voice.
Anti-terrorism laws. When it comes
and the nose and the ears, he looks like a caricature that you'd get drawn at like an amusement park.
To records, you know, you didn't hear anything Congress Allred has done. What I have done is, as I said, authored and passed 100.
I don't think things are getting deleted. I'm not deleting them. If things are getting deleted, I mean, a lot of times YouTube will just like not show comments, so I don't know. And there's also like blocked words. There's a lot of factors at play here. I would say if someone's modding, maybe be a little less zealous. I don't see anything getting deleted though. I'm looking at like the history here, but I'm not paying attention completely. I usually when I'm streaming, I don't even look at the chat. But when I'm alone, I have really no other choice. I have to kind of talk to the chat a little bit.
101 different pieces of legislation, including legislation targeting Hamas. They should be sanctioned, and I stand with Israel that they should destroy Hamas.
Senator, thank you. Sorry about that just a moment ago as well. Let's move on to another issue here. It's a pocketbook question, something you mentioned earlier tonight, Congressman. You said while you were at the grocery store as a child, you'd swipe the debit card and you'd say a little prayer, you and your mom. Since the pandemic, though.
Okay, yeah, it's probably YouTube. Like YouTube will block a lot of words. There's a lot of words YouTube doesn't like, and they won't, like you type it in and it just never shows. So
food prices have soared 25%, as everyone in the studio knows here tonight. Senator Elizabeth Warren and other Democrats, though, wrote to President Biden to use his executive authority to lower food prices. Since you did not sign that letter, what is your idea to bring down food prices?
Yeah. Well, listen, as I said, this is personal for me. I know exactly what it's like when the cost of anything goes up. I mean, I know what it's like to be dead broke, and to hope that something comes along so that you can get through that week. And that's why I've been so laser focused on controlling Texans' costs and lowering them everywhere I possibly can. One of those is the child tax credit. For 6 months, it was in place, and it helped us lift millions of Texas kids out of food insecurity. You know, the North Texas Food Bank told me that they could track when the child tax credit hit folks' bank accounts because need for their services would go down. We wanted to extend that. We thought it was the right thing to do, to lift kids out of food insecurity. But Senator Cruz opposed it. When I'm in the Senate, I'll bring back the child tax credit. I'll also make sure that we cut taxes for the middle class. This has been a tough time for the middle class. We have to make sure that we're alleviating their tax burden. And I'm going to invest in a new generation of housing to make sure that as we can increase our housing supply and lower the overall cost of housing. It's something that has to be a national priority. And when I'm in the Senate, it will be.
Congressman, thank you. Senator, how do you lower food prices?
Well, let me briefly address the child tax credit, because that was an integral part of the 2017 Trump tax cuts that I spent hundreds of hours working on, fighting for, and supporting, and that Congressman Allred opposed. The Trump tax cuts worked incredibly well. We saw the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, the lowest African-American unemployment ever recorded, the lowest Hispanic unemployment ever recorded. We saw real results.
The lowest Hispanic unemployment ever recorded.
Now, the Democrats this past year, what they wanted to do with the child tax credit is they wanted to relax the work requirement for parents. They wanted parents not to have to go work. That's a mistake. We need parents to get back to work. Now, your question was about inflation and food. Listen. Kamala Harris and Colin Allred have undermined our farmers and ranchers every day. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Texas Farm Bureau to fight for the farmers and ranchers in Texas. They put bureaucratic regulations that make it harder and harder for farmers and ranchers to survive, but nothing hurts more than the cost of energy. Listen, whether
I love people when they have the position that regulations are like the biggest problem.
Whether it is the natural gas that goes into fertilizers that they use to farm crops, or whether it is the diesel in their tractor or the diesel in the trucks bringing food to the stores. The energy skyrocketing prices are the result of Congressman Allred and Kamala Harris's war on Texas oil and gas. Congressman Allred voted for billions of new taxes on natural gas. He also voted in favor of Joe Biden's ban on liquid natural gas new permits, and he's voted in favor of Joe Biden's ban on new gas engines. Starting in 8 years, two-thirds of all cars have to be electric.
Senator, that is your time. I want to redirect the question, though, to families like yours years ago. Yeah. How do you lower food prices here? Your name wasn't on that letter for the president to use executive authority. How do you do it?
There are some times where there is price gouging going on, and we have to have the agencies that are responsible for that looking into it. But it's also true that some of these supply chain issues and consumption issues from the pandemic are still ironing themselves out. But let me be very clear about something. I opposed Joe Biden's pause on LNG exports. In fact, you don't have to just believe me. You can go read the op-ed that I wrote in the Houston Chronicle opposing it, saying it was the wrong thing for Texas energy, that it was also wrong for our national security, because while we're trying to wean our European allies off Russian gas, you know what was replacing that? Texas LNG. And so I want everyone out there to understand that I will be a defender of the Texas energy economy, that I'll grow it in an all-of-the-above way, and that what Senator Cruz is telling you is simply not true.
Senator,
I need 60 seconds to that, because he directly responded there, and what he said was false.
Senator, we don't have time. We want to get a few more topics in here in our final minutes.
Give me 30 seconds give me 30 seconds, because he illustrated what I said at the beginning.
Time on the next question.
Difference between talk and action.
Senator, we need to move on. You can address it in the next question here, sir.
Let's change topics, Senator. Both of you say you believe in protecting access to fertility treatments like in vitro fertilization. But the process effectively ended for a while in the state of Alabama after a state Supreme Court decision there. If both Democrats and Republicans agree on protecting IVF, why hasn't it happened?
So it's a great question. It's very important. I'm going to get to it in a second, because I do need to respond to what Congressman Allred just said before.
Seconds.
Which is, I said at the outset, there's a difference between words and actions. If you noticed on LNG, what Congressman Allred said is, well, I wrote an op-ed about it, and it's true. He does claim he supports LNG. But when it came time to vote, there was a vote in the House of Representatives, do you support Joe Biden's ban on new permits on LNG? And Congressman Allred voted with Joe Biden. He voted against Texas jobs. By the way, in South Texas, there's an $18 billion new LNG export terminal struck down by left-wing judges, the kind of judges Congressman Allred supports. That cost 6,000 high-paying jobs in South Texas. This is an agenda where his record, yes, his words sound good, but his voting record, remember his first 4 years
he doesn't
in the
sound
House,
like he's lying like I do.
Voted 100% with Nancy Pelosi. He didn't deviate on a single vote, which meant he voted against oil and gas and Texas jobs repeatedly. All right, IVF, incredibly important topic. I am the author of legislation that would protect IVF as a matter of federal statutory right. I joined with Alabama Senator Katie Britt to put a clear protection of IVF. I strongly support IVF. You ask why it hasn't passed? because Democrats, very cynically, they stood up and objected. Why? Because they want to campaign on the issue, and if my legislation had passed, it would be unequivocal in federal law that IVF is protected for every American, and it is Democrats who blocked it.
Senator, that is your time. Congressman, IVF, 90 seconds to
listen,
respond.
you know, if Senator Cruz is telling you something that doesn't match with what you're seeing from others, then it's probably because he's lying. I was named by an outside group the most bipartisan Texan in Congress. This is something I've worked at, not just in an election year, like he's trying to change his image in this election year. I've done it over the course of my 6 years in Congress. Let's talk about IVF. Because IVF didn't need protecting until he got his way of going after it. No one was thinking that we needed to protect IVF until he was singularly responsible for pursuing, by putting in place judges at the district court level, the circuit court level, and the Supreme Court level, folks who would put at risk this miracle technology. And you know what? It's not just that. When he ran for president in 2016, he supported the personhood amendment. You know what that means? That would make something like IVF illegal. It would also ban certain forms of birth control. You did. Yep. You did. When you ran for president in 2016. You can look it up, folks. You don't have to believe me. Again, you've been seeing him lie to you for 12 years. Let's have a senator who doesn't. And I will always protect IVF, but it was at risk because of him.
Senator, 60 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, let me say on IVF, you can watch the debate on the Senate floor where I tried to pass strong, clear federal legislation protecting IVF.
Mitt Romney is not Amish, he's a Mormon. An Amish person would never run for office. I don't believe so anyway, because then they'd have to like break the rules of their religion. They would have to.
And the Democrats stood up and objected it cynically. But I got to say, there's something Congressman Allred says that he says all the time. He says this independent group rated him the most bipartisan member of the Texas delegation. And I got to say, I found that quite odd. So I went and looked at this group. Because how can someone who votes 100% with Nancy Pelosi, which is what he did his first 4 years, how can he be bipartisan? How can Colin Allred? Colin Allred voted 100% with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris their first 2 years in office. How could he be called the most bipartisan member? And then I discovered this group. Its board consists of a bunch of Democrat donors. They say on their website, we don't look at votes. We don't examine every vote. So he can vote. He votes exactly like Nancy Pelosi. But yet,
Nancy Pelosi bad. I'm going to say you're basically Nancy Pelosi because everyone knows she bad.
Okay,
100. True or false? Your first 4 years in the House, you voted 100% with Nancy Pelosi. True or false?
Senator, that's your time. Congressman, you can respond. Please, Congressman, you can respond in the next question.
You can't have your picture taken. You can't drive a car. You can't use a phone. You can't use a computer. You can't do most of the things that you need to do to be a senator. Yeah. And like, you know, you have to go to, I mean, like all of the like meetings at the Capitol, those are all on film.
Here, we're almost out of time.
An Amish person could not run for like federal office.
You can respond to the next question.
Let's get to it quickly.
I want to ask you this question. Kamala Harris, Congressman, she wants to give $25,000 in down payment assistance.
They can't even dress like these guys are dressed. They have to wear their traditional clothing.
Wanting to buy their first homes. She's also proposing a $40 billion innovation fund to build more affordable houses in Texas. The question tonight, do you support those?
Okay, so let me just address the bipartisanship thing, because over 70% of the bills that I've co-sponsored over 6 years have been bipartisan. And you know what? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is another group you might have heard of, Senator Cruz. They gave me an award, the Jefferson Hamilton Award, for my bipartisanship. So that is not in question. What is in question is your recent transition to trying to be someone who wants to actually get things done instead of being a hyper-partisan.
There are very, very few things Amish people can wear. And all their clothing is handmade. They normally, I mean, it's kind of similar to like Muslims. They, you know, like fundamentalist Muslims dress a certain way. You know, they all have the same haircuts. Amish people, they all have the same haircuts. It's they can't have buttons on their shirts either. They have to have other ways of keeping their shirts together.
Now let me go back to housing here, because to me the focus has to be on increasing our housing supply. We have to build more housing. We have to build more affordable housing. We have to make sure that it's connected to our communities. This has to be a focus for us and a national priority. I was in the Obama administration at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This has been a need for...
When I lived in Ohio, I used to have to drive from Amish country to get from where I lived to where my family lived. and you'd have to watch out. You ever seen like a deer crossing sign or like a moose crossing sign or elk? They would have Amish signs where it'd show a little man like in a horse and buggy. And it was basically like, look out. There sometimes you'll be flying down the road and you'll encounter a man in a buggy.
Us for a long time, but we haven't addressed it fully. When I'm in the Senate, we'll make sure that we move a bill to try and build a new generation of affordable housing across Texas and across the country. That will help lower costs for folks. It'll also increase the supply. We have to do it. Here in DFW, we got 300 people a day moving here. And you know what? We also have to invest in our infrastructure. And I want to talk really quickly about that because there's a bill to bring $35 billion to Texas over 5 years, the bipartisan infrastructure law. Mitch McConnell voted for it. I voted for it. Senator Cruz voted against it. When you're growing as fast as we are, you have...
Here's the sign, by the way. Kind of like a deer crossing. It'll tell you like how many miles you should look out. These are actual signs I have seen while driving on the road.
Have to have the infrastructure to keep up with it. But he apparently didn't think that was a good idea.
Congressman, thank you. Senator, you have 90 seconds, sir.
Well, when it comes to housing, nothing is driving up housing costs as powerfully as the 11.5 million illegal immigrants that Congressman Allred and Kamala Harris have let in with their open borders, and they want to keep letting in. But let me say, when you talk about bipartisanship and record, let's compare our actual records. Congressman Allred mentioned the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, where the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has endorsed me in this race because I've been the leading champion of jobs here in Texas for 12 years.
I'm the leading champion of jobs.
In 6 years.
Okay, how do you quantify a statement like that? I'm the leading champion of jobs. The government doesn't create jobs. They can do policy to try and encourage job growth, but the only jobs the government creates is a government job, like a postman or and any type of government job. But the government doesn't like pass a law that these companies have to create jobs to employ people. They can just try to encourage that through policy. And what he's saying is he cuts taxes for corporations so they can hire more people but pay them lower.
Here's in the House, Congressman Allred has authored and passed 3 pieces of legislation. 3. In my time in the Senate, I have authored and passed 101 different pieces of legislation, 2 different bills to create new interstates, I-14 from West Texas to East Texas, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. That was Raphael Warnock and me, a liberal Democrat, Cruz Warnock. We passed it. That's going to produce thousands of new jobs. I-27, a new interstate that's going to run from Laredo through West Texas, through the Panhandle, all the way up to Montana. That was Cruz Lujan. Ben Ray Lujan, a Democrat from New Mexico, that passed. That's going to create thousands of jobs. I authored the legislation to expedite the permitting on 4 brand new bridges in South Texas that is going to create thousands and thousands of jobs for South Texas farmers and ranchers. The Texas Association of Business refers to my legislation expediting those bridges as the single most important legislation for Texas-Mexico trade since the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. Congressman Allred has no record to point to.
Senator, thank you. To be clear, Congressman, do you support the initiatives that Kamala Harris is proposing?
The only time a road creates a job is when they pay people to build the road, and then it's like
$5,000, the $40 billion innovation fund.
Yeah, well, to be clear, I think we have to start with the housing supply before we get into anything else.
And how do
then
you
it's
pay
a
for
road.
Yeah.
And I guess you employ people to like maintain the road.
Well, listen, this is something that is going to have to be a priority for us because it is an important question. How do you pay for something? Because there are certain investments.
So housing is expensive here because for a few reasons. There's a lack of it. So like, scarcity creates value, the supply and demand thing. There's a lack of housing here. And we also have these huge companies headquartered here like Amazon and Microsoft. There's a bunch of them. Boeing. There's so many huge corporations that are some of the Starbucks, that are some of the largest, most wealthy companies in the world. And they don't hire people here. They import employees from other states and other countries. So then we have these wealthy tech bros living here, and that drives up the cost of everything because all of a sudden we have these like way more wealthy people here that can afford to buy up the housing for a higher price. And we're kind of in a place here where land is more valuable than, in many times, the land that the house sits on is more valuable than the house itself. Like, you can tear down the house and it won't devalue the property that much. I'll mention that in a second. What's happening in a lot of neighborhoods around here I'm seeing is that the houses that were built in the 50s around here are being torn down, and they build like a giant, like 3-story mansion on top of the land, you know, but the land on its own is like worth like $750,000. I will read Negan's thing here. Pretty sure Shab seen Amish people while here and was surprised, and thought I was joking. My mom used to be a Yoder toter. Ruined her minivan. Seats stank like shit. Like I told her it would. Oh, so she had a job driving Amish people around. I've seen that before. But I guess I'm just rude, but I was right in the end. Yeah, I mean, like, they don't have running water. They don't use like the same stuff. I don't think they have running water anyway. I've never actually lived in an Amish community. I've just like visited them. My parents would like buy furniture from them because it was like cheap but made well. But yeah, they hire people to drive them around, and yes, they don't have the same hygiene that we have in what they call the English world. They call us English, people who live in like modern society.
That bring back more than what you put into it. When you have a housing shortage, you have to build more housing because that's driving up every other cost, and it's really hurting our young people. When you have an investment in infrastructure, like $35 billion that Texas is getting, that's happening because I voted for it in spite of Senator Cruz voting against it, that is something that's a smart investment that's going to help us grow our economy.
Yes, Nintendo of America is like a 10 to 20 minute drive away from me.
When it comes to the Chips and Science Act, which was a good idea that I was a part of passing in the House, that John Cornyn was helping to pass in the United States Senate to bring.
We have Expedia, Bungie, Valve is around here. I think Wizards of the Coast is headquartered in Renton. A lot of game stuff. Yeah, there's so much here. There's so many Microsoft campuses around the entire area that Microsoft has their own bus system to bus people, you know, from the main Microsoft campus in Redmond, and then they have a smaller one in downtown Bellevue, and they have a few scattered around Seattle. Also, there's a lot of Google, like there's quite a few Google headquarters around here too.
Back high-tech manufacturing to Texas and America. We were voting for it. Senator Cruz was voting against it. Our economic output has been in spite of him. And when I'm in the Senate, I'll make sure I'm part of these hard work that we have to do to roll up our sleeves and get things done, like addressing housing.
Congressman, thank you. It feels like the time has flown here in the studio tonight. I hope our viewers have gotten something out of this, but it's now time to make your final pitch to voters for your closing statements. Congressman Allred, you won the coin toss tonight. You chose to go first. Sure. You get 60 seconds, sir.
Sure. Well, I want to thank you all for moderating. You did an excellent job. I want to thank Senator Cruz for a spirited debate. Listen, we're all Texans. My idol, John Lewis, used to say that we might have come here on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. We're all Americans, and we're all Texans. We need a leader who will bring us together around our shared values. That's what I've tried to do in my 6 years in Congress. That's the exact opposite of what Senator Cruz has done. Whatever he says tonight, you've seen it for 12 years. He's been one of the most divisive senators in the entire country. If you don't like how things are going in Washington right now, well, you know what? He is singularly responsible for it. He has introduced this new kind of angertainment where you just get people upset.
Angertainment. I like that.
You podcast about it and you write a book about it and you make some money on it. But you're not actually there when people need you. Like when the lights went out. When 30 million Texans were relying on a senator to spring into action. He went to Cancun. That's who he is.
That is.
Give me the chance to be your United States Senator. I'll never abandon you.
I bet he was like, oh shit, when he got caught doing that, when people saw him at the airport.
And I'm asking for your vote and for your support in this election.
Congressman, thank you. Senator Cruz, you get the final word tonight. You have 60 seconds.
The stakes in this election are the highest of my lifetime.
They say that every time.
Congressman Allred and Kamala Harris are both running on the same radical agenda. Congressman Allred has pledged to be the 50th vote for Chuck Schumer to end the filibuster, to end the requirement of 60 votes to pass major legislation. That means if Congressman Allred is elected, we will see the Democrats, number one, strike down every voter integrity law in the country. Number two, add D.C. and Puerto Rico as states to give them 4 new Democrat senators. Number three, grant immediate voting rights to every illegal alien in America. That would turn Texas blue, and every statewide elected official in Texas would be defeated in the next election. And number four, pack the U.S. Supreme Court. That would jeopardize our fundamental rights. I've spent 12 years fighting every single day to defend jobs and freedom and security. Congressman Allred wants to destroy what we've got in Texas because he shares Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris's value. I will fight to keep Texas, Texas.
Senator, that is your time tonight. Gentlemen, we do want to thank you for a spirited and animated but respectful debate tonight. We appreciate that here.
This is animation?
Before we go, we do want to remind our viewers, it's hard to believe here too, but Election Day is coming up here shortly. Early voting begins Monday, October the 21st.
I can't believe it's starting, like, the election is just like a couple weeks away. This is going to be crazy.
Election Day, of course, Tuesday, the 5th of November. That is 3 weeks from tonight, when we will have a winner in this race and find out who will serve Texas for the next 6 years. We appreciate you watching the Texas debate tonight. Don't forget to make a plan before you go vote. If you show up at the polls otherwise, it might have a long line. Make sure you make a plan before you get there. Thanks for watching. On behalf of Gromer Jeffers and myself, have a good night.
All right. So that's that. So I have to do a pee-pee break. I am going to I'm going to play something that got over really well last night, so I'm going to do it again. Unfortunately, the video isn't as long as the song, so it'll stop eventually, probably while I'm gone. But I got a really good response to this last night, so I'm gonna try it again here. Let's check it out. One moment here. I don't know why it's like this. Give me just a second. I'm going to switch back for a second because I got to fix this. Save playlist. All right. For some reason, the resolution got fucked up. All right. Let's see if this works now. All right. Here we go.
Watching kids playing. I'm an alpha, I live with my dad. You're a simp bro, and I'm just a Chad. I'm a black belt, you know what it is. And my carpet is all covered in jizz. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playgrounds, watching kids playing. I'm an alpha, I live with my dad. You're a simp bro, and I'm just a Chad. I'm a black belt, you know what it is. And my carpet is all covered in jizz. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playgrounds, watching kids playing. Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? I'm hanging at playgrounds, watching kids playing. I'm Jared Genesis. Do you know what I am saying? watching kids playing.
Oh, damn, it's over. All right. Okay, back. Here we are. We're back. We're back. Pick it up. Pick it up. God. We'll see if we even get to the Cyrax thing. I do want to play the latest in the Cobraverse because Jessica is revenge porning our Lord King Cobra. Jessica is revenge porning our Lord King Cobra, which is really messed up. And we're going to go over that right now.
Somewhere in the world today, men have got to stand up strong, face the truth about themselves, to understand what went wrong. I know we can find a way. I know we can find a way. I know we can find a way. Stand up.
It's amazing.
Stand up.
It's amazing.
Stand up.
God damn it! All right. Where is that shit? I thought I had the video. Shit. My bad. All right. Here it is.
We need to talk.
He didn't even give the normal intro. He's like, we need to talk.
First of all, I want to say thank you to Mormo for hosting me on your last live stream with StreamYards. Appreciate it. His team gave me $30 to my Cash App for some alcohol for the stream so I could drink with Mormo, and I got a 6-pack of this delicious Voodoo
That's sweet.
Ranger because they were out of the mango one. And I got this big old bottle of Old Crow.
Old Crow.
So I appreciate Mormo being my friend and hosting me on his show and everything. It was a fun time, man. People are asking me questions about ghosts, asking me to do vocal covers. I covered Youngblood's version of Kisses, I Was Made for Loving You. I covered Dreamer, or not Dreamer, blah. Mama, I'm Coming Home, I mean. But speaking of Ozzy, I honestly think my ex-girlfriend, Jessica Boyle, is more obsessed with me than I am with Ozzy Osbourne, and it's not healthy. Why, you ask, do I say this? Because, first of all, long live Ozzy, fuck the trolls. Second of all, Jessica Boyle is revenge porning me. Back when me and Jessica Boyle were dating, we were long distance. And long distance can be hard. So to keep the romance alive, we would record each other having sex. And we each get a copy so that when we're feeling lonely or missing the other one, we could like watch it and go, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I would, even if the situation were gender reversed, I would never dream of revenge porning my exes. That is so fucking stupid. And I let Courtney know about the situation, and she's not fucking happy. I'll tell you that right now. She'll talk to me later when she can about this. Jessica Boyle doesn't realize that revenge porning is super illegal. And you know what kills me about Jessica Boyle?
Wait, is this about to start the Jessica jail saga? Maybe.
On her hypocrisy, why don't we just take a sip of this Voodoo Ranger for a second? Is that Jessica Boyle used to be on Cam 4, which is basically like a cam show for like spicy fun time, you know. It's like Chatterbait, basically. Jessica Boyle will get pissed off because her arch nemesis, Jessica Messica, will steal all of Boyle's content and repost it on Messica's Discord. On her, you know what I'm saying? And Jessica will get so mad at that. She'll be like, oh, I'm sick and tired of Messica revenge porning me. Durr. And then what does she do? First of all, Jessica, when Messica does it to you, it's not revenge porn because you're posting your shit publicly for everyone to see. So when they're reposting it, it's not revenge porn. But taking pornographic videos of me and you after we broke up that no one else has seen but you and me, that's not public, and then making it public, that, you stupid cunt, is revenge porn.
You get her, Cobra. Show her what's up. Show her what's what.
I'm just sitting here like, okay, let's take a couple hits of cherry pipe tobacco and a sip of beer and fucking breathe.
Breathe, Cobra, breathe.
I will be pressing charges on Jessica Boyle because I'm not having this crap. She probably got drunk and pissed off and mad because she's no longer with me and decided to be all vengeful and spiteful. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. If this is how she is with any of her exes, I can only imagine why no guy wants to fucking date her. Literally, Jessica Boyle is going to die a lonely, miserable old lady with too many cats in her fucking parents' house with nobody to love her. Nobody will want to have sex with her. She is the fucking worst, dude. I'm telling you right now, for your own sanity and safety, like, don't fucking date Jessica Boyle. And she was constantly minging on about how, oh, Josh, I know I'm not pretty like your ex-crushes. And I'm like, Jessica, I don't care. I don't fucking care. You're pretty enough to get the job done. So, like, fucking...
You're pretty enough to get the job done. I like how he refers to it as a job that needs to get done. Like it's raking the leaves or mowing the lawn or whatever. Okay. Can you, like, wash and wax the car, please? Can you get the job done?
Stop. Sometimes that's all you can ask for, you know, when it comes to dating. But at the same time, I'm like, fuck that. You should be allowed to have standards as long as you're not a fucking sicko. And it's like, you know what pisses me off about the dating scene? If men have standards, it's body shaming and you're a fucking male pig. But when women do it, you can't call them out on their hypocrisy when women have standards on the dating scene because then they turn around and say, you're just slut shaming. I'm like, so why is it okay for you to do it, but men can't? I'm like, I'm all about gender equality on my channel. And as long as you ain't a sicko, who gives a shit? I could go off on an hour and a half rant about dating double standards and gender relations, but I think by now we're sick of hearing it. And the only reason I go off on these rants is because I want women and men, boys and girls, to understand each other and go, you know, I never thought about it like that. I never realized how hard the opposite sex has it. Huh. Make them think, you know, we're not so different after all. The only thing that separates women and men is women give birth to children, men do not.
There's a few other differences, but more alike than different.
Men are put underneath way too much pressure to get sex and get laid. If they try to get it, they get called a fucking simp. If they're not getting it, they get called a fag and an incel. They're ridiculed for it. They're only celebrated for when they do get it. versus women. Women are put underneath way too much pressure to give out sex. If they don't give it out, they're a cock tease. If they do give it out, they're a slut. And I'm like, what the fuck? That is so unfair for both sides, dude. And that's just my take on like gender relations without going into like extreme details. And if you want to increase your chances, fellas, of getting some pussy from the ladies, check out Tactical Soap.
Hell yeah. No skip ad button for this ad.
Link description box below. Unfortunately, coupon code King Cobra no longer works.
That sucks.
I'm still going to rock the soap. It don't matter. The soap works. Women like the way it smells.
Like he said, he doesn't need to get laid to know that it works.
Michael Angelo Badio once famously said, "I want to give you the keys to the Lamborghini." That expression also applies to Tactical Soap. Because when you're a dude and you're trying to get laid, most chicks are not going to have it unless they find you physically attractive. If women do not find you physically attractive and you try to hit on them, they can accuse you of rape and...
Oh, no.
Get away from me, you creep. And if you try pulling the whole, but he's a nice guy and he's got a great personality, they tell you to fuck off. But when it's gender reversed, he's a pig for not giving her a chance. And it's like, no, women just can't handle rejection. Because women are overly sexualized and have way too much pressure in our society to look and act a certain way. So when they get rejected by the opposite sex, they can't handle it because it means you weren't sexy enough to ride this dick. And what have I been what have I been saying in my last couple of videos?
Tactical
your
Soap
crushes
works?
reject you, fuck them. They're not good enough. People reject you, they're not hot enough to be with you then. You'll find someone better. I believe in you.
He's moved from, you know, my crazy ex is revenge porning me, and now he's on this, you know, he's giving relationship advice.
This goes for both fucking genders, goddammit. The thing of it, now we circle back to Jessica Boyle revenge porning me, and I'm just like... I'm sick of it, YouTube. People have seen my dick before, man. I go onto a dating website that allows you to post spicy pictures. And then I would get myself, like, my dick as hard as I possibly fucking could, you know. Make sure my balls look good, they're nice and relaxed, and they're not like, you know...
They're nice and relaxed.
I get a full-on rager, man, and then snap a couple of pictures like, ladies, what's up?
He wanted to make sure his balls were relaxed.
They see this ugly mug, and they're like, ew, but then they see what I'm packing downstairs, and they're like, alright. If I didn't have biceps and a huge cock, chicks wouldn't talk to me, dude.
He's got a couple selling points. What can we say?
So, like, what do, YouTube? Jessica Boyle is flat out revenge porning my ass. And then she wants to get mad at Messica for doing it to her. She's such a fucking hypocrite, dude. Whore hypocrites. Slag it. Slag it. Slag it. Slag it. Mingy little slag it.
Wow. I don't know what that word is. Sounds like it's replacing a different word, but I don't know.
I fucking hate Jessica, and I wish she'd just fucking leave me the fuck alone.
She's not. She's coming out there. That'll be her next move. Unless someone reports her and she gets prosecuted for what she just did, which I would kind of hope would happen. But they might just be like, oh, she's crazy. Her parents, it'd probably be a dream come true for them to, like, not have her living with them anymore. That's what I would think. What do you think? So, how's it going? We got to 63% so far. Anyone want to hit it up with one last tip train? I drank a bunch of coffee and some LaCroix. Do I have another one? No, I thought I was going to bring another one down here, but I only brought one. How sad. That's my replacement for soda and beer. And kombucha. I was drinking kombucha a lot, but just going to carbonated water now. I don't know what I have no idea why the parents haven't. I think 5150ing her is only like a temporary solution, right? Like eventually she would get out and they would have to choose to either let her move back in or let her sleep on the street, unless they could find like a group home for her. Whore petty bitch. It's an interesting collection of words. Yeah, they hold her for 72 hours and then, like, I don't know. I had a mentally ill family member and they put him in like a group home for a while. Just to like get him out of his parents' house. So it happens. It works if if the person isn't totally resistant to it. Yeah. I'm hoping the right people talk Josh into. He would have to contact the police where she lives. Or they might tell him to report it because it was done on the internet. I don't know. Let's see. Virginia's revenge porn law makes it a crime to distribute or sell nude or sexual images of someone else without their permission, do it with the intent to harass, intimidate, or coerce the victim, use an internet service provider, email service provider, or other information system to commit the act. She's guilty of all three of those things. Right? She's guilty of all three of those things. So, I don't know if it's up to Josh to report it. Maybe his dad can report it. I don't think he's watching right now because he hasn't said anything in the chat. But if he was here, I understand why he wouldn't want to talk to the police. But she's going to keep doing it unless it's reported to the proper authority. And hey, if she gets in trouble for this, she's not going to be able to fly to Casper again. So it helps everyone. Her parents and Josh. Because Josh did not authorize that this pornography would be publicly released. If he had, that would be another story. But that's not the case. He doesn't need to contact a lawyer like a civil litigation lawyer. He needs to contact the police. This is a criminal offense. Jessica doesn't have any money you can sue her for. Like, what she needs is to be reported to the police and charged with a crime. Josh doesn't need to talk to a lawyer. He doesn't need a lawyer for that. That's the prosecutor's job to do that. You know, someone has to make the choice to go ahead with prosecution. But it has to be reported first. Jessica has no money to sue her for. Like, nothing. Like, if you sued Jessica, the only person who'd be walking away with money would be the lawyer you're paying for the lawsuit. Because even if you got a judgment, she wouldn't be able to pay for it. She did post it from Virginia, so they have a law. I just looked it up. I literally just looked it up and read it. They have a revenge porn law in Virginia. The victim doesn't have to live in Virginia. The crime just has to be committed in Virginia. The main jail sentence is up to 12 months in jail. I don't think she'd get that. She might not get any jail time. She might just get probation. But when she's on probation, she can't fly to Casper again. She won't be allowed to leave the state. She won't be able to get on an airplane and leave the state. So, and this could all be brought up in court for public record. All the harassment, the way she flies out there to harass him. No, I'm going to read the law of the state where the crime took place because that's what makes the most sense. So that's what this is. These are the laws of that state. She's done all three of these things. These are the three different conditions in which she would be guilty of this crime, and she's done all three of them. It's a slam dunk. They might just think she needs to go to a mental hospital. I don't know. We'll have to see. Revenge porn laws are to protect anyone who is a victim of this behavior. It doesn't matter if they're a child or a woman or a man. We're all under equal protection under the law. This doesn't name any specific gender or age. And men have almost definitely been the victim of revenge porn before. It goes both ways. I don't think she'll go to jail because, as far as I can see, she doesn't have any priors. And that would be public information if she had. Like, people would have already leaked that. So she would probably just get, like, she'd have to go to court. They'd probably give her, like, a plea bargain or something if they decide to prosecute this. She'd have to make a plea bargain, more than likely, and then she'd probably just be on probation. But then she'd be, like, a lot of things would be restricted, and she wouldn't be allowed to get in trouble again. Because then she would definitely, like, if you're on probation and you get in trouble again, then you probably are going to be in jail for a little while. Yes, I would love to see her try to keep her mouth shut while a judge tells her what's what. Because that's really a minimum requirement of appearing in court. Yeah. So, I think I'm done with this stream for now. I am going to wrap this one up. Thanks to everyone who helped me get up to 63% of the goal. That's amazing. I've been having financial issues recently, and this is really helping out tremendously. So I appreciate every one of you. This is like so helpful to me. And yeah, this is why I'm doing more streams. This is why I'm streaming earlier in the day and doing extra streams on days that I would have had off before. But it's fun, and I enjoy talking about all this shit. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap this one up. I hope all you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time, all right? Goodbye.
In the beginning, there was nothing. And then there was the Drunken Peasants Podcast.
Drunken Peasants. Drunken Peasants. Drunken Peasants. Drunken Peasants. From the strangest corners of the internet, gonna get TP'd by Billy and Ben. You know where you can find them at. Get ready, cause they're gonna kick your... Drunken Peasants. Drunken Peasants. Drunken Peasants. Drunken Peasants.